All right, all right. Welcome, welcome. Welcome to another episode of Brand Marks the Spot, a show where I talk about all things branding, design, and life as a solo business owner so you can leverage the power of branding to impact more people and grow your business. And welcome to the show today. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for joining me. If you're here live, leave a comment, say hi, tell me where you're from, and if you're watching a replay, just give me a hashtag replay. And of course, if you have any questions, just drop them in the comments and I will certainly get to them, even if you are on the replay, and I should be notified. Let's make sure I am all set here. All right, good. We are ready to go. So in today's episode, we are going to be talking about how to create a year's worth of branded quote graphics in a day, right? An entire year's worth of quote graphics for your social media in a day or less, most likely. And there are several reasons we do that, and we'll get into that. But before we start, I want to say that this episode is brought to you by my free roadmap to creating a killer visual brand. And this is for overwhelmed entrepreneurs who know they need a brand, but just don't know where to start or what to do. So why don't you go ahead and grab that at patricksesko.com/brand roadmap. It's about a 16-page document, and it takes you through my 4D branding roadmap process that I use for my one-on-one clients, and it gives you the overview of what you should do. So go ahead and check that out. And I am going to bring myself on camera. Again, that's patricksesko.com/brand roadmap. And in this episode, I'm going to pull myself up here on camera. Let's see, how do I do this? I can never remember how to do this. There we go. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about, again, making a year's worth of quote graphics in less than a day. And we're going to show you how to find the quotes to use, how to create your branded graphics in Canva, and how to almost set it and forget it. Nothing truly is ever set it and forget it. So when I say set it and forget it, it's not true to 100%, but it gives you a lot of freedom when you do this pre-work, and you can schedule all these things so that way you can semi-set it and forget it. All right. Okay, so the question arises, why create a year's worth of social media graphics? Well, there's several reasons why, one of which is so you can focus on other aspects of your business. If you're a solopreneur like I am, and you have contractors and VAs working for you off and on, this allows you to focus on other aspects of your business, right? So you're not doing this every time you want to post a social graphic. You're not doing the legwork of creating or finding the content to put, creating the graphic, designing it, exporting the graphic from Canva or other design software, and then taking the time to post it, and then writing the comments to go with it, etc. If you do that every time, you are making a lot of extra work for you, and it can interrupt your flow when you're working. So another reason is to fill posting gaps. So when you're posting stuff in social media, it takes a lot of time and effort. And of course, you want to nurture the people who are commenting and liking and all that, so that takes time as well. So this allows you to fill posting gaps, and you can do it from an automated standpoint. So you're going to have other social media posts, whether they're a live video or a relevant post to something that you're working on, or you're sharing an offer that's launching or something like that. That's going to take up your time doing it at that time. And then that way, having these social media quote graphics sort of loaded up and ready to go, it fills those gaps. This also, to create a year's worth of social media graphics at once, is going to allow you to batch this repetitive task, because it is a repetitive task. So if you batch it all in one sitting, you can get it, like I say, you can get a year's worth done in less than a day. And it's batching that repetitive task. And once you have that batched repetitive task sort of down pat, and you have a little system going, you can outsource that to a virtual assistant. So that way you can actually free up your time completely and have your VA do the work for you. And then lastly, because we are personal brands and businesses, We always want to stay top of mind to our audience. And so to have these social graphics that are posted on a regular basis and automated, it allows you to stay top of mind. And that's what that TOMA, top of mind awareness, right? So that's part of how you can maintain your brand awareness to your audience. So let's get started. So number one, finding and collecting your quotes. I'm going to come full circle here. There we go. So finding and collecting your quotes, right? So things to consider are, you want to make sure that your quotes are going to be relevant to whatever it is that you're offering to your customers or your clients. You want to make sure that it's going to align with your audience and the content that you are constantly putting out. So I wouldn't be, putting up quotes from, I don't know, yoga, some things about fitness per se, if I'm discussing brand and design. So sometimes they may overlap and sometimes there may be a connection there and that might work, but you just have to consider that, right? Make sure they're industry specific, or at least some of them are industry specific. So for myself, I'm in the design and branding industry. So a lot of those quotes are going to be related to that. You can also incorporate motivational quotes, which aren't necessarily industry specific, but that's just kind of a good way to sort of, inspire people, right? And then that goes to the next one, inspirational quotes. So those are always good, and those can work across all industries. And then you can have quotes that are specific to your expertise. All right, so where do you find quotes? So there are a few things to consider before you start searching for your quotes, right? We just went over that. So where to find your quotes? So Google is always your friend. So do a search on Google, say quotes for, and then list the topic or the industry or whatever it is that you're offering. So for me, it would be quotes on branding, quotes on design. But then you can also do quotes on motivation, quotes on inspiration, right? So definitely Google, and Pinterest is also your good friend when you are searching for quotes. And again, this does not have to be this big, super detailed research. Go search for some quotes, find a bunch, collect them, and then you can kind of edit down which ones you think are going to be appropriate for your audience, right? Other places to get quotes, books. If you read books like I do, I often read a lot of industry books. So you can see I have this one all tabbed out. So whenever I'm reading a book, I highlight a quote and I'll pop it into either a Google Doc, or if I'm out on the beach or something like that, I'll just pop it into an Evernote doc. So I keep sort of a running tab of quotes as I come across them. So that way they can continue to stay fresh over time. If you are watching, influencers or, gurus that you follow online, and you're watching a lot of their videos and you hear like a really profound statement, you can quote them. Of course, you want to attribute the quote to the person. So make sure you do that. And then lastly, yourself. If you're putting out content, in my case, I'm putting out this video show every week. If you're putting out content, go back and look through your either your show notes or your videos, and pull out a one-liner or two, and just attribute it to yourself. So that way you are contributing to the content of quotes. All right, so now you want to collect your quotes. I'm going to come back on camera. I can never do this so simply. Let's see here. There we go. Okay. So you want to collect your quotes now, right? Once you have searched your quotes, you want to collect them. So you want to figure out how many times a week are you going to post a quote graphic. You're going to do it once or twice, however many times that is. Multiply that by 52 weeks in a year. So if you're going to do once a week, you're going to find 52 quotes. You might want to find maybe a dozen more than that, so you can sort of pick and choose, because sometimes some quotes won't be relevant to what you're putting out there. Like in the case of the pandemic, when that happened, there might be a quote that might seem insensitive based on the current situation. So you do want to review those as time goes on. So multiply that by 52. If you're going to do 2 quotes a week, then obviously it's going to be 104. So once you start looking for your quotes, create a Google spreadsheet and keep track of all the quotes that you find, right? And make sure obviously you get the quote, you get the author of the quote, and you want to get the reference to where you got the quote from. So you want to make sure you always attribute the quote to the person that it came from. And in this case, I'll show you this is a spreadsheet that I created. It's a very simple Google Sheets spreadsheet where I have a column for the actual quote, a column for the author, a reference from where I got the quote, and whether I posted it or not. There's a little drop-down menu that says yes or no, and the date that it was posted, right? So this is just a simple way to keep track, and this can be a running tally of all the quotes. You can maybe create a separate sheet within the document and do it quarterly so it's easier to manage, or you can just do them all in the same document. And if you're watching this and you'd like a copy of this spreadsheet, just hit me up with the spreadsheet in the comments, and I will direct message you a link to grab that. So go ahead and do that. All right, so that's how you collect your quotes. You find and collect your quotes, right? So next up is going to be designing your quote graphics, right? And again, before you start doing that, you want to understand that these are going to be platform specific. So if you post something on Facebook, the size of the graphic is going to be different than it is, say, on Instagram. Even within Instagram, the size of a regular post is usually square. I think it's 1080 by 1080, but then Instagram stories are, taller and narrower. So make sure you use the appropriate quote sizes. Now, what I do as a little bit of a hack is that's a lot of work to create, 2 different Facebook sizes, 2 different Instagram sizes, one for Twitter if you use Twitter, maybe you use Pinterest. So whatever the platforms that you're using, it can become quite unruly to create all of these different sizes and keep track of them. I just go simple. I keep them all square. So even if I post on, say, Instagram and I share that to my story, the image comes up in a square, but then you can add some contextual comments or hashtags or things like that, right? So keep that in mind when you're doing that. It's platform specific. And also, like I say, Instagram has different sizes for posts versus stories. But if you want to keep it simple, just do it square. 1080 by 1080 is probably going to be fine for resolution's sake. And so keep that in mind when you get ready to start. So now you've found all of your quotes. You've got your spreadsheet ready to go with your quotes, the author, and the reference as to where you got it from. So now we're going to create the branded graphics for the quote, right? So when you're creating the quote, I use Illustrator and Photoshop often, but Canva is a great tool, and I use that as well, oftentimes for simpler projects like this. And it's a lot easier to hand off to a VA if they're not familiar with the more advanced software like the Adobe Suite. So Canva is a perfect solution for this. They even have a lot of prefab templates that you can customize if you don't want to design one from scratch, or if you want to design one that's really branded to your brand specifically, you can create one from scratch, right? So when you're creating your branded graphics, it's important to use your brand colors always, right? You're using your brand fonts, and then you want to incorporate any brand elements throughout the design. So if you have some background patterns, or if you have some little shapes or accents, color blobs, depending on what your brand looks like, your brand identity, that you want to incorporate that into your graphics, right? And then of course you want to add your signature or your logo small to the bottom or somewhere on the graphic, right? And what this does over time, this creates a cohesive look and feel, because whenever you're putting stuff out there, it's going to take your audience at least 7 times to be exposed to your brand before they begin to remember it, and then before they start to associate that with you. So make sure you do all of that. Keep your brand colors, your fonts, and your visual branding elements consistent throughout, right? So this creates the cohesiveness. And I will show you just a little, this is just a screenshot from my Canva page of my quote graphics. Now for me, I've got 4 different designs for my quote graphics. I'm a graphic designer, so I tend to take it to the next level. You don't have to get this detailed. You can keep it real simple. You can even have just a flat color background with a simple text quote, or you can add some of these accoutrements. Like I have these little, line graphics, and I use a lot of fundamental shapes in my design: triangle, circle, square, hexagons, etc. So I incorporate those into my designs, and I've got my brand colors and I got my brand fonts, and I have a little bit of a variety. So what I do is I rotate each one of these design styles each week. So what that does too is in Facebook, not so much, but say in Instagram, if you're putting them on the grid and you're really anal about keeping your grid perfect, which I am not, but if you do that, they will create a nice pattern on the grid if you are using the grid design concept for Instagram. So that's what those look like, right? And then once you set this up, you set up however many different designs you're going to have in your Canva doc, and then you go through your spreadsheet and you copy and paste, you finesse the fonts to look nicely on the page, whether it's going to be centered, whether it's going to be left justified or right justified, that's up to you. And once you've done that and you've done all of your quotes, so you're going to have at least 52 if you're doing one a week, then you want to export all of your graphics to either your computer or a shared drive. And so what you're able to do in many of the softwares, including Canva and Illustrator, you can export a multi-page document in Canva particularly, and you can export that entire year's worth of social media graphics in one fell swoop. And once you do that, one, it'll save a huge amount of time because you're not doing one each, right? Again, this is what it's all about: batching content, and it's all about freeing up your bandwidth. And speaking of bandwidth, I was supposed to go live yesterday, but with 2 kids doing online school, and my wife was teaching from home via Zoom and all that, 4 people online at the same time with video did not fare well for me. So I pushed it to today. So that's why I'm here today. But again, this is speaking of bandwidth, this will reduce the amount of time and effort that you are going to put forth in doing this. You do it all at once. It's batched. It's done in less than a day. And then when you export, it's going to look something like this, right? So this is what mine looks like. It goes up to 40 on this screenshot, but there was probably like 80 something graphics all done in one click exporting. And you'll see that they're all numbered 1 through however many I had, right? So when you go to post, these will be numbered, so you can just keep track very easily because there'll be an order in which you're going to post already on the shared drive folder. So whether that's you doing it or whether that's your VA, it's going to be very easy and organized to do. So now you have your year's worth of graphics that you can post. So now let's get into how to post them, right? So we're going to talk about scheduling your posts, right? So when you schedule your post, you want to upload your quote graphics to the platform, typically via the native platform uploader, right? So if it's Facebook, you can use the Facebook Creator Studio. If it's Instagram, you do it up through Instagram. But there are other scheduling tools like Buffer and Later and a billion others. So if you use a scheduling tool or your VA uses a scheduling tool, you can do that. But you want to schedule your posts so that way you can upload multiple at once and set it and forget it, kind of, right? So when you're scheduling your post, don't just schedule the post and have it be just one and done. Don't just schedule the graphic. Give it some context, right? Don't just schedule it and be done. Write a short commentary about it. Write about how it might pertain to something that you teach, or if it's contrary to what you believe in, maybe you can post a comment about why it's contrary, right? Or maybe how it applies to a lesson that you teach. So this gives it a little bit more oomph instead of just posting it for posting's sake, right? It gives it some context. It gives your perspective on the quote, and it just makes it more engageable, if you will, right? And also incorporate platform-specific hashtags if appropriate. So obviously, like if you're an Instagrammer, you're going to want to use some hashtags. Or I don't even know if hashtags work on Facebook. I know they actually work, but I don't know if it's a good strategy. But if that's what you do, then great, right? And this is what it might look like. So in this case, this is the Facebook Creator Studio. Let me just take my face off of here so you can see. So this shows you the scheduling tool, right? So you upload the single graphic. You can add a little commentary about it. You can schedule the date. I typically do the same time every week. I do Monday mornings. So that way it's in people's feeds once a week. And then that way the week starts off with a post, and then it can kind of give you that momentum to move on to the next posts, whether it's that same day or whether it's the next day. But it gives you the momentum to say, okay, I started off Monday, so now I'm going to be consistent with my posting no matter what you're posting, but it gives you that little bit of momentum to do that, right? So this is how you do it here. And I think in the Facebook scheduling tool, you can actually schedule a post to go to both Facebook and Instagram, since Facebook owns Instagram. So that is a double whammy there. Or like I said, you can use a scheduling tool. In the past, scheduling tools used to be, they used to penalize you on the platform if you used a scheduling tool as far as showing your stuff to more people, because it wasn't done in the native. So I don't know if that's changed or not over more recently. So, but I think that if you do use the platform itself to schedule, you're probably going to get a better engagement, better showing. So that's what I got for you today. That is, in a nutshell, how you create a year's worth of quote graphics. And so, now it's your turn. Go out and do that yourself. Go ahead and search your graphics, or search your quotes. Keep a running tab of all your quotes in a spreadsheet, so that way you can keep track of them. Create a branded social media graphic template that you can use, so that way once it's done, you can just repurpose that. And create all of your weekly, however many times you're doing a week, posts in Canva or other design software, so that way when it's done, you can export all of them at the same time. Then you go into your scheduling software or your platform, you schedule them in advance, so that way it's done. It's a little bit tedious when you're doing it at first, but once you get a little mojo going, it's a lot easier. And again, once you get a system going, you can outsource that. But it's important to get it done yourself, so you know what goes into it, so that way when you bring on a VA to do it, you can show them exactly how to do it, create a standard operating procedure around it, and be done with it. So that's what I got for you today. If there's anyone here, if you've got any comments, go ahead and leave them below. If you want that spreadsheet, just leave a comment and say, give me the spreadsheet. I'll DM you the link. No opt-in required. And if you have any questions when you're watching the replay, just type in #replay and type in your question, and I will respond to it. That's what I got for you today on this hump day on Wednesday. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you next week. All right, take care. Bye-bye.